Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, so another video for my motorcycle tips for new riders. Emergency braking. This is actually, it applies to both CBT and your Mod 1, whether that be A2 or A1. This is something you're going to need to be able to do from the very beginning. I think some people might overthink it and overcomplicate it, and I've seen people struggle with it, but it's actually quite a simple thing to do. But it's also something you should be well practiced at if you ride, because the better you are at something, the more you practice at it, the better you'll be when you need to be. And obviously with emergency braking, effective braking could reduce your braking distance by a few feet, and that can make the difference between going through the side of a car and not going through the side of a car, and we all know which one we'd rather have. Now I'm going to do this on my DRZ 400. It has independent braking. I don't know how this is going to apply to bikes with link brakes these days, because with link brakes, when you pull the front brake, you get both. I actually find that to be a very effective way of braking, and I find it difficult to lock the tyres at times, so that's actually a benefit to you. But if you're on a fully manual bike with independent front and rear braking and no ABS or anything like that, this is a skill you're going to need to be able to do. Now, it's not difficult at all, and there's only 3 steps you need to remember to do this. So basically, on the day that you're being tested, or they're just training you, you'll be riding along in the compound or wherever at about 30 miles an hour. And the instructor will stand there and he'll just suddenly put his hand up at a random moment. He won't say do it at a line or anything like that, because you're supposed to react. The reason he wants to find your reaction is because if you grab that front brake really hard, known as panic braking, you will shock the wheel into locking. If you think about it like this, right, okay, if you gently brake, progressive, the grip builds up, the weight transfers onto the front wheel as you brake, which forces it into the ground, and then you get more and more braking force, and the harder you brake, the more grip you get, basically, up until a point that it would let go. But that's why progressive braking is important. If you jab on it, before the weight's had an opportunity to, it then slammed into it, which pushes it into a skid. Once you've lost traction, it doesn't take much to keep it losing that traction. And with the front, what normally will happen is the front will turn like that, you'll continue skidding, and you'll end up going into the ground. So the methodology is this. I hope you can see both sides. Okay, so I'm not touching the clutch because I'm going to be going along at, say, 30 miles an hour. They put the hand up, you off the throttle, on the brake progressively, and then you bring in a little bit of rear brake. Don't lock the rear brake, because that is a failure. If you note there, I didn't say anything about pulling the clutch in, because you don't do that either at all or until the last second. It doesn't matter if you come to a stop and you stall the bike, that's fine, as long as you then do the next bits correct, which is basically the same as pulling away. So if you've had to come to a stop and the engine's died, you would put it, start the bike, put it back gear, do all your checks, make sure it's clear, all that stuff you have to do, just like you're pulling from away from the side of the road. Then you're still fine as far as I'm concerned. Now, the reason you don't want to pull the clutch in is because it's giving you added braking through engine braking. If you don't know what engine braking is, I have a video on that as well. I'm actually going to do this in a second, and I've got a rear-facing camera on my bike, on the tyre and stuff, so you can see what I do. But just in case you can't see my hands, it's going to be going along, throttle off, front brake on, little bit of rear brake, and then just as we come to a stop, that's when I would consider pulling the clutch in if I was going to. This is normally done at about 30 miles an hour, and I'll just show you a demonstration of how it's done, basically. So you're going along, and then you go throttle off, front brake on, little bit of rear brake. This isn't about ripping the brakes and stopping in 3 feet. It's about stopping in a safe, controlled, but efficient way. So going along again, throttle off, front brake on, little bit of rear brake, pull the clutch in the last second, and that's it. Don't worry about locking up the rear if you're practicing, because you'll have to find the point that it starts to lock. But don't worry if it does lock. Unlike the front, which is not good, the rear, because it's following the front wheel, kind of keeps in line. It might go sideways slightly, but it will keep in line. So if you do lock up, the worst case scenario is basically it does this. It's not very scary. You don't even notice a huge difference. Yeah, Let's try that again. Throttle off, front brake on, rear brake on, clutch in. Perfect! Then it's the whole, check, indicate, pull away, blah, all that stuff. Let's say this is something you're going to have to do in your CBT. It's something you're going to have to do in your Mod 1, whether that's for your A2 or for your full A licence, or even your A1 licence. It's part of every single test, and it's part of riding. It's important to be proficient and good at stopping. As I say, for all riders, practice. The more that you do something, the better you are at it, and the more prepared you are for the scenario that you do actually need to do it. And obviously, in higher speeds, controlled but effective braking is far more efficient than poor braking or skidding or anything like that. And as I say, those few feet can make the difference between a brown trouser moment and a red trouser moment. So there you go. I hope you found that useful. It is something we should all practice. Don't go mad at it. That's the main important thing, is just don't slam the brakes on. Don't think you've got to stop in 3 feet. You've got to just stop quickly and progressively. If you found this video useful, please do give it a like, subscribe to my channel. If you've got friends that are learning to ride, share the playlist with them, the motorcycle tips for new riders, because seriously, that set of videos has helped get hundreds of people through their tests. Just read the comments. So you might find it useful, and it's always good to know more than you need to when you go into a test. Huge thanks to the people going up the screen. They are my Patreon supporters. You get videos 3 days early, you get to be able to send me private messages, and you also get to be part of my Patreon community, which is a much smaller little tighter community over on Patreon, and it's only $1 a month. That's not £1 a month, that's $1 a month. It's like 77p or something like that. But it really helps me continue to make these videos and bring this content to you. So thank you very much for watching. Catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.